Welcome to Walks on the Wild Side. I'm Scott Walker and I want to ask you a question. What do you do when you go to a new location for wildlife photography? Well, in this video, I'm doing just that. I'm visiting a place for the first time and I'm going to give you some tips by telling you exactly what I do to get the most out of a new location. There are some starlings in this sheep field. I'm just shooting under the fence to get them. My God, one of the starlings just jumped up onto the back of the sheep and I got a beautiful shot of it. So let's start out with the easy stuff, research. So you're probably going to a location either because you know there's a subject that you want to photograph there, or because you're doing something a little bit more speculative. Maybe you just want to photograph whatever you find, or you're doing some research to go and shoot species specific at a later date. But it's really important to know what are the things that you are likely to see. And so you want to do some research and you can look on Instagram, on eBird. That's a service that I've talked about before, but it's a really good service where you can look up where specific species might be. But there are a plethora of other services out there. For example, you can look on the websites of nature reserves, which often list their latest findings. And if you're in the UK, every county has got its own recorder of bird sightings. And they all get sent up to the British Trust of Ornithology, the BTO, and produced into national findings. But there'll be local birding groups that feed their data into the county recorder. And those groups, and sometimes the county recorder itself, will have a website. So if you just Google whatever county it is that you're in and birders group or something like that, you're likely to find it. And there you'll find loads of useful information about what is going to be where. Next, you want to understand the geography of the place that you're going to. So you can look up online and find out where are the paths, where are the exit points, what's the route around the place that you're going to take. And that's important for the next step, but also understanding what's in the areas around it. So the nature reserve that I'm visiting today backs out onto this river. So that gives me some more opportunities to think about. And next, so you can make the most of your trip, you want to understand the light, both the direction and the quality of it. And there's a few different apps that I can recommend for this. So firstly, let's talk about the quality of the light. Well, that really depends upon cloud and how much cloud is at each level. So you get low, middle and high cloud. And if you get some high cloud, that's not so much of a problem. In fact, it's really quite nice. You get a lovely soft box effect, which can really help you bring out the colours of the birds. But if you've got 100% cloud at high, medium and low level, then it's going to be really dark. That's not game over, but it probably means you're not going to get too many bird in flight shots. So you might want to focus on some behavioural photographs or some portraits of your subject. And two apps I would recommend to look at this are on your phone, Clear Outside. And this is built with just the right things that you need to understand. So you can see what percentage of high, medium and low cloud are at each level, along with the chance of rain and snow and things like that, what the atmospheric conditions are like, so if there's anything that's going to affect visibility, like fog or mist, or even heat haze, and you can understand the wind speed and direction. So that's a great service, but particularly when it comes to the light, being able to look at that on your phone and understand what the lighting conditions are likely to be like is really helpful. On your desktop, I would recommend yr.no, and that's actually the Norwegian weather service, but it shows a very similar level of detail to Clear Outside, but it also shows it in a nice graphical way that you can see how that changes throughout the day really visually. Now, when it comes to the direction of light, there are two main apps that I would recommend. So one is for when you're planning your photo shoot, and that is the Photographer's Ephemeris, or TPE. It's a paid for service, but once you've paid for it, you've got it for life. There's no subscription or anything like that. And you can put in any point on the planet and it'll show you the direction that the light is coming from throughout the day. So you can plan where your sunrise is going to be, where your sunset is going to be, and everything in between. Now that's important if you remember back to the previous step when I asked you to think about the route that you're going to take. Because if you know where the sun's going to be throughout the day, you can plan your route out so that you get the most out of it. For example, you don't want to be walking into the sunlight all day, or all you're ever going to get is backlit silhouettes. Now, there's nothing wrong with backlit silhouettes. In fact, I take a lot of them. But if that's all you're going to get all day, it might be a problem for you. So thinking about your route and where you're going to be, which direction you're going to be facing, etc., when you're planning is really good. The other app that's really useful is Photopills, and I'll show you Photopills now. And Photopills is another paid for service, but like the Photographer's Ephemeris, once you've got it for life, but it's got an AR function in. So you can move it around and see where the sunlight is going to be throughout the day, which is really useful for when you're on the spot planning for where you want to be later in the day. My next tip is to use your ears more than your eyes. Now, that might sound bonkers when it comes to photography. Walks, you can't take photos with your ears. I can hear you all crying. But using your ears allows you to locate the wildlife better than your eyes will. So listen out as you go around for the bird song and the bird calls. And it will help you if you get to know the bird songs and calls. And there are loads of services out there, apps, websites and so on, that will help you learn them. But even if you don't know the bird songs and calls, you can still use the sounds that you're hearing to recognise where there's a bird and to try and get nearer to it. Now, a lot of people will recommend that you take out binoculars when you're scouting. I don't. I very rarely take out binoculars. For one thing, it's just another thing to carry, and I've got enough to carry already. But I've got a tip for you that you can turn your camera into a scope. So if you switch your settings onto manual focus, that will normally be with a switch on the side of your lens, and make sure that you've got focus assist on, or that might be focus zooming in some cameras. You might need to look up in your camera's manual what it is, but effectively what it does is when you turn the manual focusing wheel, it allows you to zoom in digitally to get much closer. And with the current Sony setup, I can digitally zoom in twice, so it will go up to 4 times and then up to 9 times, which allows me at 600mm plus 9 times closer to use my camera like a spotting scope, the kind of thing that you might have seen bird watchers using so that they can get close-up sightings, much closer than you get with a 600mm lens. So here I'm going to look at that telegraph pole in the distance, and it's probably a good 50 metres away from me, I guess, but I will be able to get really close to the points on top of it where the wires cross it. So firstly, that you can see there is at 600mm. So now if I turn on my focus assist, I go to 4 times. Let's get that in focus, so that's a good view. And now I can go again to 9 times. Now I'm really close to it, and that thing that's on the top there is probably about the size of a blackbird. But I can see all the little details on it. Now it's not as good quality as you would get at normal 600mm because it's digitally zooming, but you don't need it to be good enough quality if you're just spotting. Now, something you may find really useful is for situations where you might need to hide, but you haven't got a hide at the location, is to find something that you can use to hide yourself. Now, that might be a scrim sheet or a ghillie blanket. I love, though, my bag hide, which is here. It's just a piece of fabric, it's the shape of a bag, you throw it over your head and camera, and you're hidden away. So let me show you. Pull this out. And let's flip that over the lens and over me. So there's a little hole for the lens to go through. There's a little patch of mesh for me to see through, and I can shoot away in here whilst keeping myself fairly well hidden from the wildlife. Now, it's not particularly useful at this time of year, or camouflage isn't particularly useful at this time of year because there's a lot less green around. But this still will hide away your shape and disguise you from the wildlife so they can't tell that you're there. Now, local knowledge is really important. So think about talking to the birders and the twitchers at your location. And I'm often interested actually whether other countries have twitchers or whether it's just the UK, so let me know in the comments below. But birders are people who go around and enjoy watching birds, and they'll often do that through binoculars or scopes, and they will know all about that location, what they've seen, and they can give you some really useful hints and tips. Twitchers, on the other hand, are a bit like train spotters in the birding world. So they'll have a list of birds that they want to see in their lifetime, and they often carry around pages. In fact, I don't know nowadays who else carries around pages, but twitchers will often carry around pages, and it'll say there's some rarity in some corner of the country, and they'll get into their car and race up there, seen it, tick it off the list, move on to the next one. But they can be really useful at letting you know where the rarities are in that location. And in fact, twitchers are the people who'll often come up to you and say, "What you seen today?" And by that they mean, have you seen anything unusual or rare? And you can ask them if what they've seen. You may need to explain to them though that you're not necessarily looking for rarities, and I often end up having to explain that I would much rather get a nice picture of something common than a rubbish picture of something rare. Now, another important point is to say, enjoy the experience. Now today, I've got some nice photos, but are they photos I couldn't have got any other place? No, I've not really seen anything out of the ordinary, I've not really been in a position to get much closer to the wildlife than I would be at any other place. But this is a nature reserve I would come back to if I was in the area. I perhaps wouldn't go out of my way to come here though. So that's useful for me. And I know it's frustrating when you don't get the kind of photos that you want, or you're not finding the subjects that you want, and you've invested time, effort and money to go to a place and then not get the results that you want. I know that's frustrating, but just chalk it down to experience. You now know I'm either going to go back to that place or I'm not, or I'm going to go back to it under certain circumstances, and so it's something ticked off the list. But please do enjoy the experience, because any time that you're out in nature is a special time. Talking of enjoying it, if you've got this far in the video, you've probably found something that you found interesting, useful, enjoyable. So if that's the case, you might like to take another walk on the wild side with this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.